at least once a playoff season, we come check in with this guy. He's a big basketball guy. We've heard him on the podcast a bunch over the years. Martino Puccio is back. Martino, how are you?
Good, good. Weather is finally heating up. The Mets are just making everything difficult. You can't enjoy your nights, but the Devils and Celtics are still in the thick of things right now. So we'll see what happens. Disappointing first couple of games from them, but I mean, just these NBA playoffs have been the absolute best in years.
Yeah, I mean, let's go start right there. I mean, these playoffs, you look at it. I mean, you had like two teams from the play-in now, both win rounds, now potentially are positioned to go to the go to the Eastern Conference, Western Conference Finals here in the Heat and the Lakers here. You had some upsets across the board. You had a lot of drama here. Plus, you had some great basketball.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it's funny because history is going to look back on these seeds getting deep into the playoffs. But if we take into context and on paper and what they've done in previous seasons, first of all, both of them matched up in the NBA Finals. The Heat went to the conference finals yet again last season. So it's not even like we're talking about some core that's never been there before. Both of these sides have been there. I think the Lakers did a great job during the trade deadline to get better. Proof was in the pudding last night with Lonnie Walker. It was even a move last year. It's just different guys stepping up. Anthony Davis finally healthy, which is always the big question mark. And then also on top of it, the top teams and top seeded teams aren't as good as a lot of people anticipated. And honestly, I'm really not that surprised. The only really shocking thing was the Milwaukee Bucks, but that's just a different conversation.
Before we get into the playoffs, though, we've had a bunch of the NBA awards come out here so far. Any big thoughts on what we've seen so far with the award winners?
No, I'm okay with everything, honestly. I thought maybe Quickly might have deserved six man of the year, but there's really nothing else that could be argued. It's not even like Malcolm Brogdon was a horrible selection, anyways. He truly was a fantastic six man this year and does more of everything than Quickly does. Quickly, his great games were better than Malcolm Brogdon's great games, but I thought the consistency from beginning to end was definitely fair for Brogdon. Jaren Jackson absolutely deserved Defensive Player of the Year. Listen, I don't knock Embiid. We all know how voting goes for the MVP these days. If LeBron wasn't going to win it three straight times, if Michael wasn't going to win it three straight times, they probably weren't going to give it to Jokic. I thought honestly, all three players in the top three for the MVP race were more than deserving. And Paulo Banchero is already, in my opinion, he was an all-star level player this season. So I don't think it was even close, to be honest with you, for a rookie of the year. And yeah, I mean, just an overall great award ceremony. I know I might have missed one award, but it's escaping me. Oh, it's most improved player. But either way, no, I don't really knock anything right now. The NBA usually does a good job. I'll probably get angry at all NBA teams, which obviously significantly affect a lot of things. But again, that's a separate combo.
Yeah, let's start going through some of these series. You see how we're doing here. Start with obviously the one more interested to most of the audience here, which is the Knicks Heat. Knicks are down 3-1
Mm.
here, and obviously they lose game one at home. They win game two, and the Heat don't have Jimmy Butler. Miami blows out of the water game three. Game four last night, watching that one closely, I think it was amazing, especially that third quarter where the Knicks couldn't miss a shot, and they were ended up somehow losing a point in the scoreboard. And that's the game. Like Miami seemed to want it more last night.
I mean, it was just the overall main point is just the defensive rebounding from the New York Knicks was just absolutely abysmal. It was amateur hour. And one of the main concerns I had for the Knicks and their team was come playoffs when the game slows down, these games are tighter, and you have a half court offense. Do the New York Knicks have anything that could break a team down? And the real question, again, even without Quickly, is just Jalen Brunson. RJ is not a great half court player. He's not a great catch and shoot 3-point shooter or shooter in general. Same goes for Julius Randle. You really just see these guys become more human. But there's some good signs. If you're a Knicks fan, it's just this is again where you ask Knicks fans the question, oh, are you sure you didn't want to trade your role players yet again for Donovan Mitchell? Because it looks like you could have used Donovan Mitchell this series. And I don't really care that they beat Donovan Mitchell last series. That's not even the point. They beat a Cleveland team that was clearly not ready for the moment. JB Bickerstaff should be gone, and I think the move should be Budenholzer. But that's again a different conversation. And again, the Miami Heat, They are getting outclassed by Eric Spoelstra because he is infinitely a better head coach than Tom Thibodeau. And again, the issue I have with Tom Thibodeau, short rotations, poor player development, run players into the ground with the way he gives minutes, and Evan Fournier is on your bench. I do not care how much money he makes or how poor he was during the regular season. He is by far your best shooting option. Your season is on the line. Use him. Stop being stubborn. Just stop being stubborn. The whole way Miami has to play defense is changed up. And the fact that you don't even give it a try is damning on who you are as a coach because you can't even swallow your pride to change that up. And like you mentioned, and again, people don't even mention this, Tyler Hero has not played in this series. The series is a sweep if he even plays. The fact that Jimmy also missed the game that you guys won just says even more about it. And then you hear Mike Greenberg this morning complaining and saying that it's something about the weather affecting the Knicks. You play in an arena. You're playing in an arena. You are not affected by the weather. The weather is nice. It is so bad, the coverage to see. It is horrendous to also just hear the excuses coming out here. The fact is this, the Knicks are a pretty good regular season team that won a first round, which is great, which they definitely had a chance in. But this is who they are, a second round exit that is limited with talent, and they don't have a superstar. And I hate to break it to you, New York Knicks fans. You need a superstar to win in the NBA. You do not have one. I think you have a really good number two that could help you win a title in Brunson. I think RJ has shown this playoffs that he's good enough to even be a three, maybe, depending on who your number one is. But Julius Randle's got to go. Evan Fournier's got to go. You have to make decisions on these guys like an Obi Toppin. Like, what's the deal with him? I think quickly he'll be fine. But just it's a mess. The roster construction is not as good as some people thought it was because they won a lot of regular season games relative to recent years for the Knicks. And I think that's the problem.
Yeah, I think there's a problem here. Well, touch on Thibodeau for a second first here. I mean, this is a guy who like has his style. He wants his guys to play defense. He wants them to crash the glass here. We've seen it. They're playing one way. Miami's playing the one way better than they are right now. And this is also a pattern for Thibodeau where, like, he's been in a lot of series where teams are up 3-1. We're down 3-1, and when he's the higher seed, that's a problem.
Yeah, I mean, and again, on top of it, it's just this is the stubbornness rooted in his ways. It's what cost him his job in Chicago. It's what cost him his job out in Minnesota. Tibbs is great when he's working well, but when push comes to shove and you want to achieve certain goals, this is why I thought Kenny Atkinson would have been a great addition to the Knicks. I thought he would have been the better hire. I mean, listen, we'll see what happens. I think the Knicks should absolutely consider a move in which Tom Thibodeau is no longer the coach, and then you change a couple other pieces because right now it's evident what is happening. Like the Miami roster on paper compared to what the Knicks have, especially with Tyler Hero out, I think it's damning that the competitiveness is just lost on them. Turned the ball over more often last night. Out rebounded in the paint. The offensive rebounds led up. And again, Miami didn't even shoot that well. That's the embarrassing part. And they weren't even good from the free throw line either. It's just, this is what the Knicks are. It was a good step in the right direction. You know, you have a really good star and then a young and up and coming player in RJ. You just need to fill out the roster. I think the silver lining in this is that I think a superstar is more likely to come to the Knicks than we've seen ever. Honestly, ever. Just clear the space, figure it out. Even if you have to take some crap assets back, if you even want to call them that, because you're going to have to sacrifice that with dumping Randall. Yeah, I mean, I think the door is absolutely open for it because it's not like they're uncompetitive in some of these games too. Like, seriously, if you say you add a superstar player to the Knicks now, you're talking a conference finals, and then you never know what could happen at that point. But I think the Knicks have positioned themselves well enough, but it was also a good enough, experience to say, hey, this is two postseasons in a row now with Julius Randle that he's just not the type of player that we're seeing in the regular season, and maybe that's okay, but at least you know for sure you have your answer that you need to move on.
Yeah, for sure. I do think in terms of what their future roster could look like here. I mean, you see what they have here. I feel like there are three guys in this team. I feel like that have to be part of this team going forward here, and that's Brunson, RJ, and Quickly. I think the rest of them you can feel free to move in the right deal, get you the right guy here.
Yeah, I agree with that as well. I've never been a big Mitchell Robinson fan either. I think he does certain things well. He always got himself into foul trouble. He doesn't have much of an offensive game outside of 8 feet. Um, and even then, if he's not a dominant rebounder and defensive player, then what is he really giving you? I just think he was just one of the better players that they drafted recently. They needed him. The Obi Toppin omission is just like, imagine Tyrese Halliburton on this team. Like, we were screaming for it when the draft pick happened. It was just, you drafted a player in his early 20s that was playing in a mid-major conference, and he isn't elite off of the dribble. And as great of a leaper as he is, he's not a good enough shooter outside of that. I don't want to hear what year it is for Obi Toppin. He's 25 years old. He should have been further along his progress now. He's regressed. He's averaged less points this season. It was just a mess of a draft pick. And they're going to have to move on from him as well.
Yeah, I think Thibodeau is going to get strong consideration being moved on here, especially like if you look at A, I don't think a superstar has come here and play for Thibodeau. That's just the general sense I have here. And B, I do feel
I
like
agree.
they've hit their ceiling under Thibodeau. I feel like that this is how they're going to get with him, the way he constructs his roster. They have to like try and find somebody who's more of a fit for the modern NBA than Thibodeau is.
Yeah, absolutely. And the pace in which this league has been running in, like, guys are going to get tired, especially when you exhaust this type of energy constantly during the regular season, which the Knicks do because they need to put themselves in a good position for the seeding. Like, the Knicks played hard all the time, and there's nothing wrong with that. But there is something wrong with it when you only rotate 8 guys like he always does, and especially when you have a lot of money sitting on the bench like in Evan Fournier. But again, that's besides the point. I think you're right. They won a playoff series. They did the same amount that Carmelo Anthony did, and those teams. And those teams were also poorly constructed. A lot of it had to do with Amari Stoudemire, but yeah, man, I still think the outlook is pretty good for the Knicks. It's just you have to nail this offseason and whatever comes after.
Yeah, it's just curious then seeing like, we know they need the superstars, like where the superstar is coming from, because right now you don't really see a guy right now who's looking to get out of his situation.
I still think Donovan Mitchell's on the table. I don't think it's completely a guarantee that he's staying in Cleveland in the long term. I just think there's possibilities for the Knicks. And again, I still wouldn't even rule out Luka Doncic in the future. And again, this is down the road. It's not even necessarily this summer or even the next. It's just put yourself into a position where you're a competitive team, you're in a big market, your roster sound, and you really have the tools to compete and build around a superstar. I think the Knicks currently are better positioned than they've ever been because at least Melo was like in his 30s at that point. Jalen Brunson's still relatively young. RJ's still very young. There's still other guys on this roster that are very young, and there's going to be money opening up. That's what I like if I'm a Knicks fan. But again, it's just you say it all the time. You never really know how it's going to go down because there are other franchises that are going to have money be opening up and other top players that are going to be available as well.
Yeah, for sure. Let's go to some of the other series in this round here. Obviously, let's stay in the East. Boston, Philly tied 2-2. Boston had a chance to win it in overtime. The other night they could not. Philly wins it, and then the series is tied up 2-2. How do you see the rest of the series going?
Listen, I think we threw away game one. Everybody knows it, literally, with the Malcolm Brogdon thing. It should be up 3-1. Philly's largest lead of this series up until last game was 8, was the biggest. We still scratched and clawed back from that deficit just to even send it into overtime. That late game execution was poor. That's kind of why I don't believe they're going to win the title, is because they're shooting themselves in the foot. I get really big 1990s Buffalo Bills vibes from these teams, where very good, they get very close to a championship, but they're just getting in their own way. Again, Harden has to go off for Philly just to win a game marginally, on top of Embiid having a good game, where Tatum was abysmal in the first half. Jalen was basically doing nothing in the fourth quarter and overtime. Again, if the Celtics just fix those things, the series is over already. It really isn't like the Celtics are clearly the better team in this series. But again, this is the power of star power in the NBA. This is what you can get. James Harden can go off at any moment. You could also see it with Embiid. Like, this is Embiid, like, not in a healthy knee, but he's never healthy at this point. So I think it's kind of silly to point in that direction. Tatum needs to be more consistent throughout 48 minutes. Same goes for Jaylen Brown. And Joe Mazzulla needs to chalk it up. I still had the Celtics in 6. I still think he could finish that way. But, game 7 back in Boston is looking likely. But I think it really hinges on what type of James Harden. I still don't think you're going to consistently be getting 40-something point James Harden. I really don't. I still don't think a lot of the looks that he got last game were great looks. It was just James Harden, when he's on like that, is one of the best offensive weapons to ever exist in the NBA, regardless of what you think of him in the playoffs. But again, I think with this matchup, it's really about the star power between the two, and whoever stars show up over the next 3 games is going to be going through. I just think Boston, just on top of what I was just saying, just the roster in general, I think it's just going to be better. This is where home court's going to benefit them. But as far as a title for the Celtics, I genuinely don't see it. Maybe I'm just a little too pessimistic, and me, I'm like that with my teams, but they're just missing that something. There was a lot of trust that I have with other great teams that I've watched, especially those older Celtics teams that went to the finals multiple times. There's not that same level of trust here. They do keep improving almost every season, though, with how close they get to the goal, because they were losing in multiple conference finals. Then they finally get to the finals, and they come up a little bit small in the finals. It's just not there. As for Philly, same thing, though. Similar to the Knicks. Really good. It's a little bit different from the Knicks. I think Maxi's awesome. I think Harden's awesome. I think he's going to walk, though. It seeming likely. Embiid, he can never stay healthy. Still a superstar. The rest of that roster, Doc Rivers, it just ain't it. But I think this has been, in my opinion, the best series next to Phoenix and, the Nuggets for this round.
Yeah, I do think it's interesting to see whoever comes out of this series, because we're going to assume Miami gets through here, because historically teams go up 3-1, do not lose the series. So, and this Knicks team doesn't look like it's going to win 3 straight against this Heat team. So.
Exactly. And then you also just don't see LeBron James losing 3 straight. Also, the statistic that came out today was LeBron is 17-0 when he's leading 3-1 in a series. That's the longest such streak in NBA history. So good luck, Golden State. But I actually do kind of see Golden State breaking that. They're going back home. I still respect Steph, how good they are as a team. Steph just has a normal shooting night last night. Golden State wins. So we'll see, man.
Yeah, in terms of the East, though, put a bow on here. Like which team they give Miami give more trouble to, Boston or Philly?
I think matchup wise, Philly. I think pound for pound matchups and the positions in which Philly is good in, and Miami, like Jimmy Butler and James Harden, you feel good about that. Bam on Embiid, you feel good about that, because Bam is a terrific defender. And then on top of it, give me Spoelstra over Doc Rivers any day of the week. I think they're going to have the coaching advantage in literally any series and matchup, because even if the Celtics make it with Joe Mazzulla, I just think the Celtics are better than what they were last year, matchup-wise, especially talent-wise. We'll see what Robert Williams is, though. I think Robert Williams is the absolute X factor in everything. I still don't think he's 100% healthy, much like Joel Embiid. I don't think he's ever going to be that. But I think if I am in the Heat, I absolutely want to play Philly. I don't want to play Boston. Boston just narrowly beat them last year, but Jason Tatum was out playing and was the best player outside of Jimmy Butler. I don't think Jimmy has enough help outside of himself in this series, especially with this Heat team, to match up with that. And again, if Tyler Hero is not there, I don't see that.
Yeah, let's go to the West for a minute here. We'll start with the series that's Lakers up 3-1 on the Warriors here. Obviously, we've seen the troubles Golden State has on the road here. The Lakers were left for dead for the deadline. Made the big additions, getting the play-in team, upset Memphis. Now they're up 3-1 here. I do think Golden State can make the series here. My one concern here with the Lakers here is if they don't win that road game in Game 6, I think the Lakers are in trouble if they're going back to Golden State a second time.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Going back for a second time to Golden State would be just like a miserable trip. But again, that's you're talking about how poor the Warriors have been on the road all season long. This isn't new. I think a lot of it had to do with how strange the Andrew Wiggins situation was. I think It's absolutely insane to think how the Golden State Warriors botched 2 top 8 draft picks. Because if they just nail those, this is another like superstar dynasty. It's pretty insane to think that. Jordan Poole just absolutely useless, 0 points. But again, Anthony Davis, when Anthony Davis is on the court, and I told Kevin Walsh this, another good friend of ours, I said it even back in like March. Listen, if the Lakers just get into the playoffs, who wants to face them if they're healthy through 7 games? Nobody. Nobody. They were the absolute. They're also the Western Conference favorites as of today. They're the new favorites. They're plus 150. Anybody who's if you're they're relatively healthy with LeBron and AD, they're the title favorites next to Phoenix. I truly believe that. Like LeBron is still good enough where he controls a game. Anthony Davis, my goodness, the defense on Steph Curry last night was phenomenal. This is what's so frustrating about Anthony Davis and anyone who's a basketball purist. This guy should absolutely be in the all-time greats for bigs. His career and injury history is going to prevent him from being that. But just the level that he has risen to in these playoffs, I think he's just in Kawhi Leonard territory. He's just a taller Kawhi Leonard at this point, where the regular season, when he's playing, he's great. He doesn't play that often. He's putting his team into difficult regular season situations. But when the lights are brightest and in the playoffs, my God, I mean, he's just as good as anyone these playoffs. I think probably Jimmy Butler, you would say, is number one next to Jokic. And you could say other players, Devin Booker as well. My God. But AD is right there in that conversation this postseason. And that's absolutely what the Lakers needed in order to be in this situation. So AD keeps playing like this. I think the Lakers are going to have a really good chance at winning their 18th title.
I just think it's funny that when they're already talking like, "Oh, we're gonna win rings." Like if we win, we're gonna give Russ a ring or give Pat Beverly a ring.
Yeah.
That actually funny. It always feels like that's bad karma. You start talking like that in the second round.
I mean, also, like, LeBron doesn't look his greatest physically. I don't know if you agree with that or not. I think that foot is ailing him a little bit. LeBron is so all-time great that it still doesn't matter. That's why he's like top 2 player of all time, is because even if you take away his athleticism, he's still incredibly strong and he's still smarter than everyone else. And he has enough skills that he could break down a defense himself. But yeah, I also agree with that too. Why at that point? Russ was the whole reason why they were probably not even going to make it to the finals. Pat Bev is just a character. But they still have to get through Phoenix. If Phoenix makes it to the conference, dude, I still think Phoenix is the favorite to win this title. But I do think out of one of the two is going to win the whole thing. I know I might have skipped ahead a little bit, but yeah.
Yeah, I do. I obviously disagree with you on that. I did take the Nuggets prior to the playoffs here. That series is 2-2 right now.
Yeah.
Here. Big game 5 tonight, and they're recording in Denver here. I think it's a must win for the Nuggets tonight. I think they don't get this one. They're not going to get back to Denver again.
No, why would they? And the crazier part is no Chris Paul in all of this. The 2 wins for the Suns without him. I just think when you had that injury to Kevin Durant in the regular season, it really hindered a lot of what the Suns wanted to do in terms of building chemistry. I think they're slowly getting to that. On top of Devin Booker, he's an elite playoff performer. You just have to tip your cap to that. He's just phenomenal. He's one of the best shooters ever. And that's not an exaggeration. I don't care if that sounds premature. I just think you don't know basketball if you disagree with that. But the guy is just phenomenal. And Kevin Durant's Kevin Durant, man. Like, we're talking about a top 15 player of all time. This is also his moment. There's a lot of legacies on the line for a lot of players. This is what makes the NBA so great. Jokic doing all he can. I love Jamal Murray. I think he's still not 100% back to what he used to be. And again, you take a risk with a Michael Porter Jr., man. I think that shot selection where he shot that 3 was poor. Jokic is getting a 50 burger, dude, and they're losing. Says a lot, doesn't it? So I don't know. I still think Denver can make this go to 7, but I think you're right in saying if tonight is an L for Denver, I think the series is done.
Yeah, I do feel like Denver puts a big effort for tonight. I do feel like this. I feel like both of these series are gonna go 7, the 2-2 series. The other two are gonna wrap up in like 5, or 6.
Really? Yeah. I mean, Boston going back into Philly. I agree with that. It's just gonna be a tough one. I do have it in 6. So that's why I'm backing that up, and I'm still backing up Phoenix because I also picked them in the series. But yeah, man, I mean, but this is what we want, though, right? This is what NBA fans want. You want a parity within this league. You want series to go deep. We're gonna get probably 2 5-game series, maybe 6 if the Warriors. I want the Warriors to push it to 7. That would be incredible. But I agree with you. Denver's gonna have to lock it in because I think they know themselves at that point. Because what are you actually going to be able to do? I don't think you're going back into Phoenix like that. And it's going to take all-time Jokic performances. I do think the Denver altitude helps. I really do. So we'll end up seeing what happens, but I don't know. I think it could be over in 6.
Yeah, I do think it would be fun here. I said before the playoffs on a podcast I did with the guys, the starting rep podcast, I said I felt like whoever won Phoenix Denver's to win the NBA Finals. That was my call, but I'm still sticking to it.
Yeah, for me, the second Phoenix acquired KD, I was like, if they're healthy in the playoffs, how can you beat that in 7 games? You struggle with it. I think on a game by game basis, it's easier to look at, but how are the Lakers going to defend though? Like, I'm sorry. There's one offensive threat, really, that's a great offensive threat with the Golden State Warriors, and that's Steph. And if Steph had a mild shooting night and the Lakers are eking it out and everyone else is playing poorly, including a Jordan Poole that they dished out so much money for, what are they going to do with that Phoenix offense? That's tough. That's tough. And they got saved by Lonnie Walker, too. My God. So it's just there's a lot of little things in each detail in the context for all these games. I'm sorry, man. I agree with you in that. It angers me because I just don't think the Celtics are there right now. That's the frustrating part and all. It's because they're right there, but I do think it's the Suns. I really do.
Yeah, we'll see what happens here the rest of the playoffs. Martia, thanks for coming on. I really appreciate it. People want to follow on social media. How can I do that?
Yeah, you can just follow me at Martino Puccio. Champions League bets are back out for this week. AC Milan's right there. We'll see if they can make it to the first Champions League final since 2007. It's a very big thing. It's very nerve wracking. I know you don't really follow it as closely as I do, but it's honestly the only thing on my mind at this moment. Like the Devils and the Celtics are taking a back seat to this because that's how big it is. But yeah, just Martino Puccio everywhere, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, and obviously on Twitter is where I'm most active. But yes, we'll see what happens. Hopefully the Celtics will pull it out. Really no comment on the Mets at this point. Just disappointing.
Yeah, it's Martino's comment on the Mets is check back in 3 weeks, see how I'm feeling.
Dude, it's the latest comment by Max Scherzer is just for me, just put an end to this season at that point. It's just I can't do it.
Yeah, I will say your Devils though, like it's also interesting with the NHL and watching that too going on here and like
Yeah.
in terms of TV, the NHL cannot be happy with the potential right now. We could have like if the Devils don't get back in the series and Dallas doesn't either, you could be looking at a potential Final Four of Seattle, Vegas, Carolina, and Florida, which would not be good for TV.
No, it would be absolutely abysmal for them. I just like they really just have to hang their hat on Connor McDavid just getting to the Stanley Cup Finals, and that's pretty much it. Even then, it's the Oilers. Like, no disrespect to hockey fans, hardcore hockey fans, or anything. And this is to your point. I don't give a damn if it's not the like, dude, like Connor McDavid is apparently the greatest hockey player ever. Our good friend Will says it, and that's pretty big to say over Wayne Gretzky after what we've been told for so many years. But it's so Mike Trout. It's really what it's coming off as. It's like this guy isn't marketable enough, and the fact that we're talking about they're probably one of the odds-on favorites to win it at this rate. A lot of people like backing them for that. Like what? Like that's a mess for the NHL. We'll see with the Devils. So I don't know. I mean, it's great to get that Game 3 victory, but you're also conceding 4 goals. So are the Devils really going to repeat an 8-goal scoring effort? I don't know, man. I think it's a wrap if they lose tonight, but we'll see.
Yeah, you're talking about or Edmonton. They lost 5-1 to Vegas at home, so they're down 2-1 in the series there. So like, tonight, I mean, those are 4 non-traditional hockey markets. So like, you lose Canada with the Oilers and the Maple Leafs eventually going out here. That would not be good for the league in terms of what they want.
No, and when does it ever go well for the NHL? I mean, I hate their playoff structure anyways, and the way it just makes little to no sense to me. But we move at the end of the day, and we'll end up seeing what happens there. Listen, I'm not going to complain if the Devils get far enough. The season's already been a success, to quote Giannis. So
Yeah, it certainly has, Martino. Thanks for all the time. Really appreciate it.
thanks.